forward to Texas, the Longhorns here. I've already answered a bunch of questions about these guys and whatnot, but the thing that strikes me with this group is incredibly competitive. Just a very physical team that's incredibly competitive. You look at their 5-4 win-loss record. You can go across the country and find a bunch of really good 5-4 teams. It's just the facts. So you look at them, incredibly competitive. They're looking at a 7-point loss, a 2-touchdown loss to Oklahoma State, which is no different than us at Oklahoma State. 3-point win or loss against Kansas State, pretty similar to us. A 5-point loss against Oklahoma. We haven't played them. It's competitive. It's incredibly competitive. So the ball bounces a little bit different. You're sitting here looking at a 8-1 football team, and that's how we got to approach it. So they're a good outfit. They do a lot of great things. Charlie's. We know he took over the defense week 3 or whatever, but don't kid yourself. Charlie's been involved with defense since the day he got there. It's his background. He's widely known as one of the better defensive coaches in the country. Always has been, always will be. So his footprint's been on it since the day he got there. Not doing a whole lot of different stuff. So it's the same people doing the same stuff, and they're continuously getting better and better. Play a lot of guys. Play upwards of 28, 30 guys on their defense. So they got a lot of competition at each and every one of the spots. A lot of youth. They're constantly rotating guys in there. They do a lot of different stuff to be able to disguise what they're doing. I think they're very well coached, and their kids are playing very, very hard and are continuously getting better and better and better. So it'd be as big a challenge as we've seen all year with their athleticism, their size, their physicality. Their different looks that they give us. It's going to be nice to be able to have a guy like Tyler and Skyler that have got a lot of experience to the point to where they can ID things and hopefully get us into the right play. But it's going to be challenging for us offensively. Defensively and going against these guys, we know that they've changed up offenses from a year ago, but their scheme may be different, but what they're doing is not a whole lot different. They're going to try to run the football. They're doing it with more up-tempo. I think they had 100 plays against Baylor the last couple of weeks. They've had close to 100 plays. They average 80 plays a game. They're very balanced. They're going to run it 70% of the time. When they do throw it, they're trying to get chunks of yardage. Everything goes with their back, as we all know. Nation's leading rusher, Foreman, give it to him 25, 35 times a game. I've been on record saying the days of this kind of doing this with the back is over, which I was wrong. We run the ball as much as they do. We just don't give it to one guy 35 times. I don't know how one guy can handle that, but he obviously can. He's the premier back in the country right now, and leading the nation in rushing, and we dealt with him last year. He had almost 150 yards against us last year, so he's incredibly big. And what shocks you is when he gets out in the open, he's gone. I haven't seen people track him down. So great player that we're going to obviously have our hands full with. They do a great job up front. They're physical up front. Got a couple of the really, really, really top-notch offensive linemen. The Williams kid, the left tackle, is a premier tackle in the country. But they got a lot of experience. So they'll bring 8-9 offensive linemen in at one time. So with fullbacks, with tight ends, with that many guys, it's gonna be challenging. Make matters worse, they got receivers that can flat out go. There's 4 or 5 of them, that can all stretch the field, that can make plays, that can get you yards after the catch. They're continuously getting better. Their quarterback is continuously getting better. Buchel, the freshman kid, is managing what they're asking him to do, continuously improving. We all know about the 18-wheeler package that they got with swoops to come in, 250 pounds, 6'5". They put him at tailback before. So, we kind of know what they're going to do, and it's going to be a challenge to stop it. They're getting a lot of yards, they're snapping the ball a lot, and they're getting a bunch of points. Got our work cut out for us on defense as well. Special teams are solid as it gets. They got probably one of the best punters in the country, averaging 48 yards a punt. They do a great job of flipping the field with field position. That's going to be a challenge. The place kicker has been, ever since the Oklahoma State game, he's been pretty solid. Transfer from LSU. But done a great job of getting them points as well. Incredibly deep when it comes to DBs, wide receivers, linebackers, which means they have an abundance of available bodies on special teams. That makes special teams great. It's not always about the actual returner. It's not about the actual kicker. It's sometimes about the other 9 guys that they're able to put out there. So their coverage units are fast. They haven't put their team in position to be vulnerable to any kind of returns at all. And then, like I said, with athleticism and talent and ability at the receiver spot, then they're going to have some return guys that are going to scare you. So overall, a very, very, very deep, talented football team. They've been playing physical football. They're constantly getting better. They're going to have as much energy as they've had all year this Saturday. They're playing for bowl eligibility. They're playing for a lot of stuff that is stuff that we can't control and we're not going to worry about. So we're going to worry about us, but this is a quality opponent that we're playing. Obviously, a quality program when it comes to Big 12 championships and national championships, and at a place where they recruit as good as anybody in the country. So be a fun challenge. I know our guys are looking forward to it. Questions?
Coach, wondering about Shell, his availability this week.
It'd be a game time decision. I'll see how he practices. Where they hand it to one guy 35 times a game, we hand it to 3 guys 35, 45 times a game. So whichever guy feels good and is back there is who we're going to hand it to.
And also, you mentioned the punt return. On your side, are you sticking with your guy punt return? I noticed you're averaging, I think, 2 yards per return.
Do I need to remind everybody of what happened 3 years ago? I don't think I do. So we're gonna do I think going back to what I said about 2 minutes ago, sometimes it's about those other 9 guys on the units. Gary, we're very confident in Gary's ability to catch the ball and all that. But we're going after punts. I'd rather go after punts than set returns up. So when you go after them, there's no blockers. So he probably needs to do a little better job of understanding that and catching it and getting forward and getting on the ground, as opposed to try to make 6 people miss. That's not going to happen. So I'm very comfortable with Gary and his ability to be able to do what we need him to do on that unit.
Coach, after the last performance in the last game, what's going to be the best back you faced so far this season? I mean, and do you also think that is it possible to hold him under 100 yards?
It depends on how many times they give it to him. They gave it to him 18 times last year and he had 150. He's a good player. The BYU back was pretty dang good. A couple of the guys we face next week are going to be pretty good. The TCU guy was pretty good. I don't need to be leaving anybody out, but there's a lot of good backs. But yeah, he's the premier back in the country right now. They hand it to him a bunch. Our job is to get him off the field.
2 years ago, went out there, first quarter, second quarter. Do you talk to the players about the fact that you had a second quarter where you played like you had played the first quarter, maybe a difference? You went 17, now scored 17-0 that quarter.
Let's try to have the same second quarter we had last Saturday. The second quarter we had last Saturday was pretty good. So, you can't go back 2 years ago. That's a different team, different situation, different mindset, different opponent. So we won't address anything that happened 2 years ago. We won't address anything that happened 4 years ago. This is a different team that we have, and our job's to get ready to practice. You know, get ready to prepare, get ready to go play.
What are you seeing differently from them defensively taking over the play calling?
No, nothing much. He's had his hand on it since the day he got there. I mean, you can't. I mean, there's been coaching changes throughout the course of a season before, as absurd as I think it is. What are you gonna do? You gonna just change everything in a week? Change everything in 2 weeks? You can't do that. It takes years to be able to get guys to understand what specific schemes are to be able to get good at it. So he's simplified it a little bit, but they do a lot of different things, and so it's a challenge on our part offensively to be able to identify exactly what they're doing and what we need to do to be able to attack it. So it's not a whole lot different.
More aggressive, more blitzing, things like that. You see?
It's not a whole lot different.
Yeah, you coached offensive players who've been on a hot streak and was thinking last year Boykin and Coleman, you saw those receivers and quarterbacks. But have you seen a running back getting a role like this, or even an offensive player getting a role like this, like forming this?
I think you need to give their O-line some credit too. I mean, they're doing a good job with their scheme. They're doing a good job of blocking up front. They're a physical outfit that you got to account for their quarterbacks as well. He's doing some things that I didn't think I'd see. LSU's got a pretty good one too, and they just haven't been able to continuously try to. I mean, he doesn't have the production that Foreman has. You know, there's injuries involved, there's wear and tear, there's scheme situations and all that. They got a good thing going when it comes to giving him the ball a lot and him being productive.
Danny, you mentioned defensive scheme. They bounce from even to odd front, not only week to week, play to play. How unique is that? How much of a challenge is that?
Yeah, Tech does it a lot too. But I don't know how you coach that, to be honest with you. But they're figuring out a way to be able to coach it and getting those guys lined up. Like I said, I mean, it gives me a little bit more comfort to have a fifth-year All-American center to be able to ID fronts. Two other fifth-year players on the O-line, two fourth-year players on the O-line, one freshman, I guess. But IDing what they're doing, and then a quarterback understanding numbers is important as well. Getting us into a right play, they'll overload you at times. You got to flip runs. You got to hold the edges with your quarterback. You got to understand when it's probably a little bit more important to throw the ball. They're pretty committed to stopping the run, but it gives me a little bit of comfort to know that we got experienced guys that can identify specific things and get us in the appropriate play. It's tough to call it because you don't know what he's going to call, and you don't know what front or any of that stuff. So it makes it a little challenging for me. Wouldn't that be fun though?
Daniel, when you first came here, you had turnover in your assistant coaching staff and your coaching staff, which is natural because you're feeling your way and the lights, and so are they. This past year you had it, but you seem to have arrived on a staff that not only you like, but it seems to work together. Can you talk a little bit about what you went through to get to this point and what makes this staff work?
It's a good point, and I think the working relationship that we have within this building is very positive. Especially at the top when it comes to what we're doing offensively, what we're doing defensively, what we're doing special teams. It's the kids understand what we're doing. You probably shouldn't get too comfortable with it and think you got it figured out, because that's always going to be. There's always going to be change. There's always going to be turnover. You try to reduce that turnover as much as you possibly can. Looking back on last year, we had more turnover than I was comfortable with, and it didn't have to happen. But moving forward, you got to be able to deal with that. You got to be able to hire coaches. It's one of the most important things that I do.
Then you talked about Shell, but your running backs and your cornerbacks also are banged up. Is that a concern? Just injuries, especially in the midst of an 8-game stretch where you don't have a week off?
Yeah, but what are you gonna do about it? I mean, everybody gets banged up. You got to play through it. It's why we recruited depth at those positions as well. So guys go down, other guys got to step in. We'll see how Crawford's doing, Antonio this week. But you got guys like Nana that are sitting there that can play if they need to, and we could put Eli back there at back if we had to. So there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody deals with the same stuff. There's scholarship limitations, and you don't want to put young kids out there that aren't ready to play. Everybody deals with that. So that's not an excuse. You just got to deal with it and move forward.
Then in the preseason, we talked a lot about Sheldon going for 1,000 yards. But I mean, DeKeel right now is on pace to break 1,000 too. What's he doing that's really helped the offense, and how has he just been consistent for you guys?
He's improved every part of his game. I'm very proud of DeKeel. He's an older guy that can handle me saying this too. But he's just the most consistent receiver, the most consistent leader, the hardest working guy that we have on offense. So I'm very proud of him. He's the guy that they all look to in that room. He's the older guy. He's the mature guy. He's the one with the most experience. He practices his tail off. He's physical as physical gets. He's always in the right spot. He's sure-handed, and he's staying on his feet this year too, which gives him more yards. I can't be happier with him right now. He's doing a good job.
What do you see now, Christian Brown?
Just an old guy that knows how to play the game. He understands what we're asking him to do. He's big. He's hard to move. He's physical. He can get off blocks. We're happy with where he's at as well. Another senior that those guys that become seniors, it means a little bit more to them. So you get into this 8-game stretch, as you mentioned, we're halfway through it. The old guys understand how to push through it. They understand how to take care of their bodies, how to maintain things, how to practice the right way and prepare the right way, which the younger guys take note of, and when it's their turn, then they lead. So, those three senior D linemen, I think, Noble's another prime example of that. Been here for 5 years and understands the long season, understands what you got to do from taking care of yourself to be able to get out there and be able to play. It's how the NFL plays 16 games. They got old, mature guys that understand how to do things the right way. Talking about a couple of senior guys that understand that.
Coach Sider, after the game the other night, was sort of raving about Eli and the job he did blocking. Thought if he'd given out a player of the game, it would have been his. How hard is it to find kids nowadays who have that passion for blocking, that want to do that kind of work?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's those guys, and to be able to hold up like Eli's holding up is impressive as well. But with the way high schools are running offenses nowadays, it makes it a little harder to find those kind of body types. Because people like reading their name in the paper so much, they want to be a guy that's getting more stats and stuff, as opposed to guys like Eli that just does their job. I mean, he was a big part of the game plan last week. We needed him to play a lot of snaps. Played him more than I thought we would, but even with that said, he took 70 snaps on offense. He's typically playing about 20 snaps on special teams as well, just very unselfish and very physical. Blocking is not just 100% want to. I mean, want to is a large part of it, but understanding technique is a pretty big part of it as well, and he's mastered it. And there's a technique to it that you got to understand through repetition and all that. That's important as well.
I know you haven't thought about this or can't look ahead at the present time, but the next 2 weeks, you're gonna play maybe the two best offensive players in the league, in Foreman and Will Westbrook. Totally different type players. What does that say about the league, about college football as an attraction, about what your fans are getting out of these next 2 weeks that they're gonna?
It's as good as it gets. I mean, you're talking about two premier programs with national championships and great recruiting bases, great coaches, great support, great fan bases, all the rest of it. I mean, it's as good as it gets, is it not? You know, and then, you know, when you're at places like that, you're going to have premier players as well. I could name 2 or 3 others that should be on that list right there too that are at these two places. But, you know, you're right. We're focused on Texas, and, you know, but I never want to sell the Big 12 short. That's for sure. I mean, it's a great league. It's a fun league. You know, each week you better line up and be ready to play your best. You know, each venue that we go to is like here. I mean, you get to come play a Big 12 football game, coaching a Big 12 football team, watch a Big 12 football game out here on Mountaineer Field. It's special. It's great. You know, that exists at some of these other schools as well. So it's a great conference to be able to be a part of. I think it fits West Virginia very well. I think West Virginia brings something to the table that makes the conference better as well.